Hello everybody, I am finally back, and yeah, not exactly on time. Although I've never really been known for having a very consistent upload schedule, so I guess this is pretty in character. Anyway, I'm still working on Fishy, and I've made quite a bit of progress, so let's just cut the crap and get to it. Also, wishlist the game, so there's a little bit of crap there, but other than that, let's cut the crap and get to it. Alright, so the first thing that I did was I overhauled the Steam page, because frankly, it looked pretty bad before. Like, yeah, let's be real, like, it just straight up did not look good before I overhauled it, and now it looks slightly better. I mean, I feel like it's at least, like, serviceable now, so yeah. I mean, Steam pages are incredibly important when it comes to marketing games, so I feel like it was definitely necessary for me to, fix the pretty obvious flaws in my Steam page pretty early on, so I did that. On to the things I actually did with the game itself. I started by doing a bunch of, like, bug fixes and patches for, like, the first 3 months of progress, basically until around the summer started. And I definitely won't bore you with everything that I did, but instead I'll just go over some of the highlights right now. First off, I feel like the main menu could look a little bit better, and the fact that the logo is a rocket, well, I mean, rockets fly, so it feels like the rocket should be moving in the main menu, so I decided to make it like fly in and zip around and stuff, and it just made it look a little bit cooler. But, of course, there's a title card in the tutorial too, and as a wise man once said, every cool-ass title card requires a cool-ass tutorial. So, yeah, I went ahead and decided to overhaul the tutorial. I added a delete save warning, I completely redesigned the level of the tutorial, added in some dialogue, a cool, like, title card drop and stuff, and yeah, basically just completely changed the tutorial. Eventually I got bored and decided to look in the asset store of Construct 3, and I found 2 plugins that immediately piqued my interest. The first one was the Developer Console plugin, which does exactly what it sounds like. You know how in, like, Half-Life 2 you can bring up a Developer Console to do a bunch of really funny shit? Just, like, really just completely beat the crap out of the game and just, like, mess around with the physics system and stuff. Well, I use that plugin to add in a bunch of commands to 5-star Fishy so that you can make yourself, I don't know, go really fast or unlock all the abilities, or lock the camera zoom to be really wide, or make yourself invincible. Really anything you want. And, of course, I used that for, like, playtesting the game, but I also, of course, did the necessary, dicking around with that. And boy did I dick around with that. It was very enjoyable. In the second Developer Console... In the second, plugin that I got on the Construct 3 store, I'm really good at recording these audio, was the Web Midi plugin, which allows you to connect a MIDI device such as a keyboard into your computer and use that to control the input inside of a Construct 3 game. To be honest, I did not have any practical purpose for this. 5-Star Fishy is not a rhythm game or anything. I just thought that would be really funny to try playing through the game on a keyboard, and it was in fact really funny, and kind of painful, but really funny. Anyway, back to actually working on things. Then I experimented a little bit with what a mobile port for 5-Star Fishy would be like, because one of my friends suggested that it would be a pretty good fit for that platform to me. And it was kind of interesting, but I definitely don't intend to port it to mobile right now, but I don't know, maybe if I actually do end up finishing it, which I do fully intend to do, and people really like it, then I don't know, maybe I could try porting it to mobile, because it does seem like it might work on that platform. But right now I don't have any plans for that. Nevertheless, it was still a pretty cool experiment. From there, unfortunately, it was very much back to just doing the boring polishing tasks. So I started out by adding in a parallax sun and moon and mountains in the background just to make the tropical shallows feel a little bit more alive. And then I polished up the UI, I lowered the player speed because it was way too fast, but then I compensated for that by adding in a speed pickup. The next task, however, would be significantly more difficult than all that. I wanted to add customizable keybinds to 5-Star Fishy, and I know that might sound like a super simple task. You just like put some buttons in the menu, and then when you press them, it makes pressing buttons do different things. But it was actually really tedious and pretty annoying. I mean, for starters, I had to make all the UI inside of the options menu, which took long enough on its own, but then I needed to figure out how to make all that save, and then I needed to make a crap ton of code to make, like, the game account for every single keybind, for every single action that the player can do. And yeah, it took forever. It took like multiple months, but, well, maybe not multiple months, but it took like 1 month. And it definitely wasn't particularly enjoyable, but I mean, at least I had a clear direction for it. This wasn't like solving some like crazy bug where I had no clue how to do it, and I was just completely lost. When it came to keybinds, it was just a very, very slow burn forward. And so I trudged along, and eventually I made it there. And I'm very glad I did it now, because, I mean, I think that's a great quality of life feature to have for 5-star fishy, so yeah, it's just another one of those, like, game development things that takes a lot longer than you think it is, and it's kind of difficult, but, I mean, that's what it's all about. It's all about just putting in all that pain and effort and blood, sweat, and tears into a project just to make it all worth it at the end. Thanks for coming to my TED Talk. Anyway, moving on. By the time I finished the keybinds, I was actually pretty close to finishing that massive to-do list, so I was almost ready to get back to working on the testing labs, the second area of the game if you didn't watch the previous devlogs. But I still had a couple more things to do, so I wrapped up some of those final tasks, such as fixing up the sand shark enemy a little bit, although it's still very janky, so I'm gonna have to address that at some point, but I made it slightly better by adding in pathfinding. And I also buffed the mini-sub pet, so you can aim its laser attack. Yo, so I just decided that I'm gonna replay the old demo from like a year ago just to see some of the progress that I've made on the game. And wow, immediately I can see there's a lot of small changes in the menu here. Oh yeah. Something about these graphics just feels very old 5SF. Anyway. Yep, the graphics have changed a lot. The UI has the outline now. These tutorial tablets are gone because the tutorial's better. And again, you don't move so goddamn fast. The spools still exist. I removed those. Also, the blood bar isn't here. It has a dumb radioactive countdown thingy instead. Pickups. Hi, Choppa. Oh yeah, and there are like no backgrounds. Can't see this either. It's kind of crazy how even with these really big, long projects, even though it can feel like absolutely nothing is changing at times, if you just take a step back and look at the bigger picture, it hardly even feels like the same game. And that really helped motivate me to continue working on this project even after all these years of continuing to work on it. But now the marathon is finally over. I'm done doing all the bug fixes, all the polishing tasks. It's time to work on the second area. It's time to complete the testing labs. After all of the tedious work leading up to summer, it was finally summer, and I was ready to get working on the testing labs. I started by adding in a heat system into the testing labs, except now it's based on time rather than enemies killed, because I wanted to encourage a more fast-paced and evasive playstyle for this level. And from there, I just added in a bunch of enemies. I added in an enemy called the Spit Slug, which does literally exactly what it sounds like it does. I added in a big old security turret, and yeah, it shoots at you, and if you shoot spicy eggs at it, you can blow it up. And I added in a mushroom dude called a Fun Guy. I added in this horrifying little creature called the Industrial Popworm, and you'll see more variants of that later, spoiler alert. And then I added in an enemy called the Endorphin, which is named after like a hormone or chemical because it sounds like a fish, which I thought was really funny. And I initially planned on it being an enemy, but I realized very soon that the area could use a big, like, NPC, so I decided to turn it into an NPC, but there was a problem with that. The dialogue system in 5-Star Fishy kinda sucked, and it was really tedious to make dialogue conversations. Because I figured that would probably haunt me for the rest of my development, I decided to instead completely change up the entire system for both the previous conversations and this one, to now use the flowchart system inside of Construct 3, and now it's way faster to make a dialogue conversation in the game. You just plop some flowcharts in, write a couple lines of code, and then it just works. So you talk to the Endorphin, and then you can meet him again in the reserves, where he says that he has a shop, but he's locked out of his shop, so you need to find his key. And if you find it, you get to go into his shop and buy stuff. It's the first shop in 5-Star Fishy, and I think it turned out pretty well. Furthermore, there are more upgrade flasks I can find around. I also spent a lot of time making those flasks, so there are health flask, strength flasks, speed flasks, and blood bar upgrade flasks. And then after all that, I worked on making the egg, which is a boss fight, and it is an egg. And judging by playtester feedback, it turned out pretty dang well as well. And it has 3 main attacks. The first one, it spits venom and like this circle pattern thingy around it, and it also spits it at you at the same time. It's probably the hardest attack. The second one, it shoots out a bunch of spears at you, similar to like the spears from the Spearmaster from Rain World. And the third one, it gets out some like bat-like wings and lunges itself at you, dealing damage to itself when it hits the wall, but also damaging you if it hits you. And by killing it, you get an ability called Drugs. It's literally just called Drugs, and it makes you like immune to radioactivity or something. And yeah, it was definitely a lot of fun making that boss. And yeah, that basically wraps it up for the testing labs. I added in a bunch of like details and smaller things, but those aren't really worth going into detail for, so by all means, it's done at this point. I finished an entire area in one summer, which was pretty shocking, judging by how long it took me to finish the Tropical Shallows. So, what's up next? Well, that'll have to wait until next devlog, but let me just say, you might want to pack a coat.